All right, let's see other ways to unwrap a model mesh. Let's assume that instead of applying that one texture that I sort of know how it works, I'm just gonna apply a new material, and this material is wood. I think I already have a wood. Let's say that I want to make this mushroom look like it's made of marble or wood. I'm going to change it to image texture, and I'm going to use that seamless wood natural color here. All right, so in this case, it actually kind of worked. I accidentally worked, but I think the thing about wood is that it always sort of seem fine because we are used to see objects made like with sort of like wooden seams, so because that's how wooden veneer is, and that's how wooden things are assembled. But let's try to apply the same material to the car, which is, by the way, something that you can and you should do. So if this car is made of the same wood, you can apply the material. Keep in mind, this is the stuff that is. This is what the material is. It's a texture and it's a subsurface. Well, a series of settings here, but the way this texture is distributed is this texture is mapped. It depends on the the UV map that we are talking about. So exactly the same material, different UV map produces very different effects. So you don't have, I mean, ideally you don't want to change, like to create another wooden material if you can avoid that. So you see here to the car sort of works fine because we are not too disturbed by seeing the grain sort of like going back and forth, because we assume it's made by different boards and so on. But yes, let's look at some of the other possible projections. One of them, like they are here, UV. You can sort of like smart UV project, and it will sort of like try to arrange it in the most optimized way. For a complex model like the scar, this could be a good idea, but it depends again, like if you're starting from a texture or if you're starting from a model and you want to paint it. So if you want to essentially like use a 3D painting program, probably this is the best way because it will produce the most regular and optimized model. So again, select all the faces, UV, smart UV project. It's all unwrapped. I believe it tries to keep, well, there are some options here, but it basically creates maybe like seams wherever there is an angle of 66 degrees. You can see what the effects are if you change those things. Yeah, you will have, I guess, like less islands. So that's something you might have to experiment. You might want to scale it to the bounds, meaning you want to take advantage of the whole surface here. And correct aspect is probably you want to make sure that this UV maps parts faces are not too stretched. I believe that's the kind of like the logic. Let's try to opt to, instead of having an image texture, let's have like a grid or like a checkered. Right. So you see in this case, the checkers are not too stretched, are more or less the same size, and that's good. That's kind of like what you essentially want. Most of the cases. It will work. It will be better for a variety of reasons, yeah. So this will be a workflow that makes sense if you are starting from the model and you want to create a texture around it, as opposed to you're starting from a picture and you have to project that picture in some meaningful way onto the model. In order to do this, I propose, let's put this car away. I propose to use another model, because this other model actually can be interesting for to look at different types of projection or different types of unwrapping. This is a model of a frame, a picture frame, and it's actually made of two things. I figured that it might be less confusing. So there is a frame outside here, and there is a picture that is a different object. So the exercise is put a picture, your own picture, onto this frame. So this is a very common way to use texture. Even I don't really use textures in my games that much, but obviously if I have an environment that has a painting or a text on a sign, a street sign, or a road sign, or a TV that has a screen in an image screen. Yeah, like that's where you sort of have to use textures, because you cannot just rely on like patterns or colors, solid colors like that. So how would I go about applying an image, like an arbitrary texture there? Well, let's select the texture. Probably I want to create a material for each of the two elements. So I'm gonna create it like picture. By the way, these names here aren't related to the names of the objects, so you can have a material called picture and an object called picture. That's fine. They just have to be unique within their their realm. So if you create another material called picture again, it will auto rename it as picture 001, which is sometimes is a bit annoying, but it's to remind you that there's already a picture material. So this picture here is this part here, and I want it to be an image texture. I'm going to open the image texture. I'm gonna just open an image that I have. Actually, not here. I want you to find your own, the image of your own pet. In this case, I'm gonna use an image that I have just laying around of my own dog. All right, so this is the picture. You can sort of like see that my dog doesn't look weird like that. Like the image ratio doesn't match. This is the image. The image ratio doesn't really match the geometry and or the UV mapping. So one thing that you will want to do is to make sure that it makes sense. In this case, I can do it in two ways, I guess. I can rotate the frame 90 degrees, and then I can select my object, go to edit mode, and make sure that the rotation makes sense. So I'm kind of like just rotating this part of the UV map. So I'm going to rotate it at 90 degrees. But now that I rotated it, well, actually minus 90 degrees. So now it seems more consistent with the aspect ratio. But now I also, by rotating it, I went off scale. I went offside of the image. So I might have to change my tool to scale and sort of like try to fit this polygon to not to display this face to this thing here. All right, so now I'm sort of like mapping this face to my image properly, but it's still not right. It's still like stretched because the aspect ratio of my original image is not the same as this painting here. So here I will have to change the geometry. There's nothing I can, well, I guess there is something I can do. I can sort of like crop it, or sort of like that. If I want to use the whole image, if this is the whole image I have to use, I probably want to select both picture and frame, or maybe only the parent, and resize it. So that's one way. But here's a problem. If I resize it, the frame will look weird. It's kind of like sucks here because it looks just a stretch. I could resize just the image, but then I have the space here. So this will be a realistic situation when you have a frame that doesn't fit the image, and so you have to put some kind of like padding in the back. But there is another thing I can do to roughly match the image aspect ratio, and is to select both object and actually change the geometry. So I go to edit mode, and I'm just gonna select and in X-ray mode. And instead of stretching it and scaling it, I'm just gonna move these vertices, effectively changing the aspect ratio of my image without changing the thickness of this part of the frame. So try to get an arbitrary image, load it, whatever, you know, aspect ratio, and try to adapt the there are people singing because it's Labor Day today. So try to adapt it to the frame to your image. So that's first exercise, first assignment. The other part of it could be, if you want it to be more advanced, you can try to do the frame as well. So the frame could be made of wood. So let's try to apply the wood material. So the wood material will, by default, will look like that, which actually might be, oh wait, like the wood material should be looking, let me, I forgot to clear the seams. So if I clear the seam and I unwrap it, it will look kind of like a random or reset. Yeah, okay, so this would be probably the default. So it might look random, might just like have weird stretched textures here, because it's just basically every face is the entirety of the entirety of the UV map, and so it's wildly inconsistent, and you know, you might like it, it might be fine, but that's usually the sign of kind of like beginner sort of like texture, when you have sort of like texture that are overtly stretched. So there are a few things that you can try, and I already sort of like was experimenting before. One thing could be that you are selecting all the faces and doing a UV project from view, and especially if you're projecting from view with the bounce, it will produce this effect here that you're sort of like mapping it basically the way it looks. Or let's do like project from view like this to maintain exactly the same aspect ratio, and then you can stretch it and sort of like adapt it to fit your needs. In this case, it works in that I don't see many seams. I mean, there is the seams here that kind of like super sucks, and it's something that I might want to change, because it looks like, I don't know, some weird extrusion. It doesn't look like wood, but also like it doesn't quite look like a frame, because that's not how frames are built. That's not where this looks like almost like a mold of something, or like one board or something. Maybe it's some frame that will look like made by a CNC router or something, if the CNC routers was to, you know, cut a single unique board and sort of like, yeah. So that's not essentially where the seams are supposed to be. And good, you know, in this case, I will probably try to identify the seams that you will find normally in a frame like this. So I'm going to select this diagonals here, the diagonal here, diagonal here, and maybe the back, and sort of like try to break it down the way you would expect the different parts of the object, in this case the wooden object, to be. And then I select the center. I can also get rid of the picture for now, since I'm really I just made it invisible. Then I can go to edge and I can mark the seam. So this is kind of like where I would expect the seams of the material to look like. And this is the same if you're making, you know, a piece of furniture, or if you're making, I don't know, like clothes. It makes sense to make seams where actually the actual tech fabric seam will look like. Now that I have the seams, I can select all the faces and UV unwrap, and I can even try. We can see how it unwraps like this. It's just like that doesn't look that great. You can also try a smart UV project and see how it looks while maintaining this the seams, hopefully. So you can try a few things, and I think I'm actually I think I kind of like this. The main thing that is wrong is that the grain of the wood should run the other way. So I'm gonna select these faces here, and I'm gonna try to see what happens if I rotate them exactly 90 degrees. So you see that I already did it before, so I was expecting this result. I did a few tests before, so don't get too overwhelmed if you're like it feels like magic or arbitrary. But turns out that marking the seams and doing the smart UV unwrapped and then just correcting it by moving it produces a proper seam, which is this what I would expect to see in a raw wood, untreated, unpainted wood frame. So try to do this something like this. There is also another texture that I attach just for fun, which is actually the entire frame. So it looks like this, and it's a more like ornate frame. So it will have to be a different, and this one also has the normal so the normal map, which is the more like fine, elevation, the fine texture, will be map onto the same UV map, at least by default. So I can, in Unity, I can import this frame, I can import the wooden textures, and this wood texture will match with this wood normal. So actually I can probably just do it here. That will have more or less the same effect that it will have in Unity. I just have to find the normal. Okay, here it is. So let's see if I can make it work. Image maybe. I cannot find it. True normal, geometry, position, texture, coordinate. Well, hell. Okay, then I don't know how to do it. Maybe I will have to. Yeah, I actually don't know how to do it in Blender. I just know how to do it in Unity. But yeah, that normal will match essentially the same thing. So yeah, try to see what happens. Well, if I now apply that texture with the actual 3D frame, it will look wrong. But maybe I can use the same kind of frontal projection, for example. I do UV project from view bounds, and I'm already quite close to the intended effect. Depending on what your standard of realism is, this could be almost right. You just have to, adjust this parts here to properly fit the edges, and it can be really annoying, but guess what, that is the life of a texturer, and that's why texturing and UV unwrapping can take a lot of time, and you might want to use the most efficient and economic techniques as possible, which is going to be the subject of the next parts, the next tutorials. So once again, the exercise is to grab this frame, replace, add your own image of an arbitrary aspect ratio, make sure that it looks fine, it doesn't look stretch, and if you can, try to texture the frame as well with either raw wood in the way I did it, or if you want to try, just try to use this full texture here that I found online. All right, people are going crazy outside, so let's end here.